So welcome everyone. Welcome to our third business events webinar. We've been really pleased to be able to run these webinars over the past couple of months now with a couple more to go. We have had a minor spell when Jo, our fantastic facilitator, had her planned trip back to the UK. So she's now back with us, and we're picking up these webinars again this morning. So thank you for everyone for joining us today. Hopefully you are finding these sessions really worthwhile. I'd like to take this time to actually acknowledge our partners in this webinar, which is obviously the Victorian State Government and Meetings and Events Australia. We wouldn't be able to run these webinars without the support of the Victorian State Government, who have helped us fund these webinars, and the partnership with MIA has been fantastic for us to be able to bring these to life. And so running 5 webinars across a couple of months has been really great. We've also run a couple of in-person workshops, and it's great to see a couple of the participants of our inaugural scholarship program on the phone as well. So it's really great that we're able to bring these to our regional partners in Victoria. As we have with all of our webinars, we'd like to keep these sessions really interactive. So questions are welcomed throughout, and we encourage you to either raise your virtual hand and ask your questions, or use the chat function, and I'll moderate those as we kind of go through the morning. One thing I neglected to do at the top is probably introduce yourself. I think I know a lot of you on the call, but those who don't know me, my name is Chris. I'm the Executive Officer for Business Events Victoria. And as I said, it's great to see so many of you online today. But as I said at the top as well, Jo Child is the National Education Manager for Meetings and Events Australia, and we've been doing a lot of work recently over the last couple of months, and it's been a great partnership that we've developed, and be able to deliver lots of educational training and skills for our industry, especially as we come off the back of what has been obviously a really tough time, and providing you with the skills that you need to hopefully be able to attract more business events into your regions, destinations, and venues and things. So I'll be here really just to sort of support, moderate, answer any questions that you might have that are specific to a BE, or add some input where I can. But I'm going to pass over to Jo now, who's going to run the session for us, and I look forward to your engagement throughout. Thanks, Jo.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Chris. Welcome, everybody. Just as we start, I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting today on the lands of a number of different peoples. Myself, I'm on Kaurna land in South Australia, but we're all meeting across a number of Aboriginal lands. So I'd just like to pay my respects to leaders past, present, and emerging. So today, as Chris said, we had a little bit of a gap while I had a bit of a holiday. So apologies for not being with you in July, but back to it now. And so today we're going to look at sales tips and techniques. So selling is something that most people find seriously scary and can't stand the thought of. So hopefully at the end of our hour together today, you'll feel a bit more confident about that, and have a few ideas about how you might engender some confidence with your team members and anybody in your organization who has any interactions at all with customers, potential or actual. So as Chris said, my name's Jo. I'm the National Education Manager for MIA. My contact details are sitting there on the screen. And if we haven't connected or met either virtually or perhaps at the MIA conference, please do feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We'll also make sure that you get a copy of the slides. Usually I send them out afterwards at some point a bit later on today. And as Chris said, the recording is up on the Business Events Victoria YouTube channel, so that you can watch it again. I will share it perhaps with colleagues if you wish to do so. So very briefly, I want to tell you just a little bit about MIA if you're unfamiliar with MIA. Now, hopefully you can hear me. Somebody says they can't hear very well. I'm just checking that I'm up quite loud. So if you can't hear, good, some people can, excellent. Maybe try and turn yourself up a little bit, or sometimes what's quite useful to do is to nip out and come back in. Zoom sometimes is a little bit tricky and has to be kind of kicked into working properly. So hopefully you'll be able to hear me, but if for any reason you can't, let us know and we will do what we can to turn me up and I'll try not to shout. So for those of you not familiar with MIA, can there be anybody who's not familiar with MIA? Who knows? Meetings and Events Australia, or MIA, we're the professional association for people like you. So we're the national independent peak body for the events industry. And our kind of job, if you like, is to try to engender excellence in all things event orientated. And we do that in a number of ways, through advocacy to governments as part of our own remit and with other organisations. But we're also very active in the training and education space. And this project that we're running with Business Events Victoria is part of that. We do run a lot of webinars and things like that, though. So just topically, we've got a webinar tomorrow, which is all about the export market grants, which might be of interest to those people that are interested in a bit of an international business feature. So make sure that you get some information about that at the end of the day. But today, our time together is going to be spent thinking a little bit about sales. So I'm going to quickly touch on who the business event sector is, for those people that may be slightly less familiar. We've talked about this in other webinars, so it will really be a quick whiz. Then we're going to talk a bit about how the business event buyer, how their behaviour might be slightly different to buyer behaviour that we're used to in other areas, and perhaps our own buyer behaviour when we're purchasing things ourselves. I'm going to talk a little bit about that lovely sales funnel that might be familiar to some of you, and I'll explain about that in a bit more later on. And trying to create a bit of a selling mindset within ourselves, but also within the team. But a soft selling, so none of that hard sell that we might think about when we're thinking about the traditional selling, and getting a bit more confident about selling, or maybe asking for the business, or building relationship capabilities so that you feel that you are at a place where you can reach out to potential clients to ask them to consider your organisation or your product. Lots of opportunities for comments. I might ask some questions along the way and get you to put some thoughts into the chat box if you don't want to speak out loud on camera or on film. Always very happy to hear people's ideas throughout, because one of the benefits of a lot of these webinars is that we learn from each other, and you can share your own experiences with each other. So please don't be shy. It's hard to be shy when you're selling. So some of us are a little bit more reserved, perhaps. So hopefully today will instill a bit of confidence so that if you are more reserved in the selling space, you'll feel that you can jump into it with a bit of confidence and a bit of skills behind you. So let's start quickly by reminding ourselves what business events are. So lots of different things are a business event, but generally speaking, it's the stuff that we have to go to for work, really. It's not the fun-filled stuff that we might do at our weekends. It's the things that we are engaging with our professional life, or in our professional life. So things like conferences, networking events, perhaps product launches, team building events. Many of you maybe have experienced some of those. Things that take the team or take a client's team away from their day-to-day desk or day-to-day work. Might be things like more formal board meetings, or some of those milestone events that companies often have to acknowledge achievement or celebrate longevity or celebrate success. And this can also hold true of things like special interest groups. Associations, for example, such as MIA, are another big part of that business event sector, or things that are really about providing elements of an organisation, the leadership team or the sales team, with additional skills. So that might be things that you as an organisation can get involved with from either a venue perspective, or perhaps providing some of the added extras that make that business event go with a bit of a wow. So broadly speaking as well, we've also touched on who the client is before. So let's remind ourselves who we're selling to, if you like. So these are broadly the clients in the business event space, from government departments, corporate clients, the businesses, the organisations, the firms, industry associations such as MIA, and the conduit, if you like, between ourselves as a business event provider and the business event delegate, the PCO, the professional conference organizer, or the event manager. So we're selling to different types of clients, which is not too tricky because they all kind of buy in a similar way. So just a bit of an idea, a little bit about those. Government departments may be something that you'd like to consider in your own area. So federal or state departments that maybe fit with the local industry, wherever you are. Events being often that mechanism for governments to deliver strategy, as an example. Industry associations, big event planners in industry associations. Associations often hold events to try to reach out or provide services to their members. And so it can be very useful if you have links with industry associations where you are, so that you can work with a local champion to try and bring those business events to you, or and remembering that associations meet all the time and they're always looking for interesting things to do, things that are a bit different, things that they can tempt their very busy association members to leave their day job behind for a day, or get away from their desk for a few hours and participate. Things like the corporate clients, the local businesses, big or small. Executive assistants are often a good pathway into those people. You might be selling directly to the EA, who is the person that often is organising corporate events within a particular organisation, working for a director or somebody a little bit further up the food chain, as it were. Certainly thinking locally can be a very good starting point for bringing business events to you. You may well know some of these organisations already, or have some contact with the EA or the decision maker, from either a work perspective or maybe outside of your work, just from a community perspective. And the PCOs, which we talked a lot about in our marketing subject, the professional conference organizer or event managers. They're the people that create events on behalf of their clients. So when I'm not working for me, and I do a bit of that myself, so I've got clients I work with, and I'm always interested in finding nice places to hold an event, interesting things to incorporate in my events, whether they're locally here or elsewhere. And so people like myself, so the PCOs or the event managers, are often a huge influencer on clients. It may be the client that makes the end decision, but you're really selling to them so that they can say, I recommend this, as part of that sales process. So your business event selling isn't always to the people that are going to rock up and actually attend the event on the day. So those are normally the delegates. We call attendees at business events, we tend to call them delegates. So those attendees or delegates, you might not actually get to see them very much at all, because you're really dealing with the organizations or the people that are bringing those people to you. So we're very much a business to business selling environment with business events. The very end user, the delegate, is somebody that we don't get to see so much about. Now, having said that, it's really important though that the customer service and the experience is of a very high level for those delegates, because they too are in business. So I've certainly myself have attended events at a particular venue, as an example, and gone, this was really good, I could use this myself. So you still the service and the experience that you're offering, and that the end user receives, is also a selling tool in itself. So the sell, if you like, doesn't end once the ink is dry on the contract. You're still in that kind of selling environment, really, with all of the experiences that you're offering. And I'm sure that would resonate well with everybody, in terms of the service levels that you already have in your own organizations for your current customers. All right, let's jump to the sales process. So generally speaking, we when we think about sales, we think about sort of getting leads or ideas of people who might be potential customers, perhaps making a sales call, that scary sales call where you've got to ring up some random person and say, hi, would you like to buy something from me? Nobody likes doing that, do they? That's quite a tricky thing to do. And to be frank, it's not something that works terribly brilliantly in the business event field, which may be good news to you. But so we'll talk about what we might do instead of that sort of like that cold sales call in a moment. The follow-up and that tenacity of the follow-up is still really important. Being able to keep the lead, if you like, bubbling, or keep that lead warm rather than cold. Obviously then providing sufficient detail and information to suit the client's needs so that you convert that interest into a sale. And then the finalizing of the sale itself. So the process is going to be quite similar, but the ones that we're going to look at a little bit more is the leads and the sales calls, and think about how the business event sector respond to those. Just a little bit on that for a second. Quite often we find that traditionally there was a very long gap between some level of inquiry and the date of an event, or the date of when your service or your product was needed. That's changed a bit in sort of the more recent times. So traditionally 6 months to a year was pretty common, getting shorter and shorter and shorter. So this data just comes from something that I read just before Christmas in September. So the traditional sort of 484 days, so just over a year, is scrunched down to about 3 months, 84 days. That's quite significant, isn't it? That has some impacts too on what it means for your business to actually deliver on that kind of sales opportunity. I think it means good things. I think it means that we've got lots of confidence returning to the event industry, which is very positive. I think people are holding back a little bit sometimes on confirming, just in case COVID raises its ugly head again and stymies the plans. It also means that your clients, as part of the sales process, will need to be sort of reassured of your responsiveness and a level of flexibility when it comes to maybe postponement or cancellation, just in case. And certainly it means that we need to respond real quickly. We need to be able to be very responsive to a client inquiry, and the turnaround times are much shorter, and that's got an impact for the number of people that you might need to be managing that in your environment, but also the operational impact when you actually come to deliver on the service or deliver on the event. So it may need a bit of upskilling in certain areas of your teams to be able to be as responsive as clients now ask you to be. Now, it's also true that when we go back to that slide we looked at earlier and we talked about leads, sorry, just jumping slightly, quite often, rather than you having to search out leads for yourself, sometimes the leads come to you. And that's because in the business event sector, we do a lot of research before we even pick up the phone or ask you if you might be able to tell us a bit more about your product. So we let our fingers do the research for us in an online environment. So most potential clients are going to do an online search. So it's important to think about what would I find if I looked at your business? So if you are interested in selling to the business event sector, is that very clear on your online environment? So for those of you that attended the marketing subject, we talked a little bit about making our business events online capability very obvious. So just be mindful of that. Some of those leads that are coming to you will come to you with some knowledge because they've done some research on you in the first instance, and it might be useful to do a little bit of a mystery shopper yourself on your own online capability to see what are you actually saying about yourself out there in the online environment. What will often happen is that your lead will come to you and you'll get an inquiry. So a tailor-made response is going to be really important. So as part of that selling, one size certainly doesn't fit all. So we really need people to be very responsive. From a business event sector, we're looking for high level of responsiveness to our initial inquiry. So I regularly will actually pick up the phone. I mean, I love email, but sometimes I might send you a quick email request for a proposal or a request for a quote, but quite often I might pick up the phone first. And there's some reasons why business event people do that. And it tends to be because we know that you and I venue, service provider. We're going to share an end customer. We're going to be working together for my customer, who will become your customer, and we want to make sure that we're going to be on a highly performative working team together. So I need to feel comfy with you. I need to feel that the organization that I'm placing my business with for my client is as responsive to my client as I am. And that comes across really well in a phone call. So whoever answers the phone needs to be warm, personable, and professional. And if it's not you or the relevant person who manages events, then I need to get to that person pretty quickly. And so certainly it can be very useful also to follow up, if it is an email, to follow up, to check some details before putting anything together. Even if my email is clear as day and you absolutely understand it, there's a great benefit of being brave enough to pick up that telephone, because we can get to know each other a little bit better. And then I'm looking for your proposal because I've spoken to you, as opposed to it just being a kind of a generic one that may, that doesn't quite have that level of connection for me. Really important to respond quickly, and I completely understand how hard this is currently when lots of us are working with significantly less staff than we might like. If you can acknowledge it within 1 working day, fantastic. And if you can get something out within 2 to 3 working days, that looks like you really want my business. We are a little bit a bit more forgiving perhaps at the moment than we might have been in the past for sending out information fast. So if you know that you're not going to get it out there till Friday for whatever reason, then let us know. If we know when to expect it, that's fantastic. But if we're just waiting and waiting and waiting, what will happen is the desire will move on, and potentially somebody else will have come in with a lovely proposal and we'll have gone with them. So it's important to kind of like keep that connection going and keep that communication going. So part of that sales is that responsiveness. So if you've got an inquiry, you've got somebody who says, I'm interested, don't let them go. Yeah, and getting out there quickly is a way to do that. And lots of people might have a number of different emails that they use for that. I recommend having an events at email if it's possible, then things don't get lost. I also quite like that because although I want to get to know you as an individual and your organisation as an individual, it does mean if you're having a lovely holiday that somebody else can get those emails. So this can be quite a useful thing to do, that if you've got perhaps some online inquiry forms or contact details on your website, if you have an events at, then inquiries that are related to events go to the right desk or the right person. And online inquiry forms can be really valuable. I personally find them a little bit impersonal, but if you use them, go for it. Respond fast though. And again, if you get an online inquiry, then maybe a quick phone call to thank them and say we're on it is always very useful. And ensuring that that anything you've got on your website is up to date and pictorially gorgeous is all part of that initial management of the inquiry and part of that selling to our very resourceful business event sector. So what sometimes happens is that you don't get to even begin the personalized sales process because it's fallen over in this stages. That the website hasn't had enough information, the telephone call that they made wasn't responded to very professionally, or there was some hesitancy that the person they spoke to didn't really know how to manage them, or the information just never arrived in good time. So go back to my little funnel. Quite often though, we might be thinking about doing sales calls. So that's a great idea if you feel confident about making sales calls. My strong suggestion then is to make a bit of a hit list of people in your area, perhaps in the first instance, who may be in the business of placing business events. Maybe they're doing outdoor events away from their office, or they can be persuaded to do that, and practice on those more local people who you may even know a little bit. So there's a lot of confidence in talking to people that you know. cold calling doesn't really work very well for us in the business event sector. We're not very responsive to that. So if you can't do a cold call, what we want to try to do is think of another way that we can gain their attention. So we'll pick up on gaining their attention in just a few moments. Just jumping a bit. When people do ring up, I strongly recommend having some sort of a checklist or inquiry form. That helps everybody, including myself. I have my own forms that I use, because otherwise I'll forget to ask a key question. Because if somebody rings me or about a piece of business, I'm probably doing something else, frankly, and I'm sure you'll have had that experience. Your head will be somewhere else and you'll forget all the sort of questions that you should ask. So having some sort of a first contact form, a checklist form that you can just fill in, whether that's online or using pen and paper, whatever works for you, is a really useful tip. It's good for people who might be answering the phone that don't feel that they're in the sales team. And if you're not there, they're confident that they can at least get some suitable information from a caller, make that caller feel that they're really valued, and stop them getting flustered. So also it creates a really great first impression. So I encourage people to do that. And certainly we've got some examples at Mia that we're very happy to share if anybody would like them. So please do ask us for anything like that. We've got lots of examples of different types of documentation, and it's not a secret. You're welcome to a copy at any time. So let's jump now and think about that sales funnel from a business events perspective. So you can see it's a bit bigger than that traditional one that we might have looked at. So traditionally, the sales funnel was looking about awareness, interest, decision, and action. So thinking about those things just very briefly, what do you currently do to get attention for your product? So happy to get some suggestions about what you do either in the chat or feel free to shout, but I'm going to guess that you've probably got a great website and maybe you do some stuff on social media to talk about things that are happening with your product or in your events. And when I say social media, I'm thinking about the more business-to-business social media, otherwise known as LinkedIn, but also things like Facebook, Instagram, etc. They're all great ways of gaining a bit of attention for your product. Interest hopefully comes from some of that. So sometimes with our attention, it might be that we've put a Facebook post up about an event that was in our venue, or we've put a Facebook or a LinkedIn post about an award that we've won as an organization or that we've won personally, or we've talked about a particular client's event that we've helped to, or we've been part of, which kind of raises the profile and builds awareness that you're open for that type of business. So all of those type of posts are all really excellent awareness because they're not static. They're talking about what's happening now as opposed to just a pretty picture. Excuse me. So when the chemistry is sort of right, what happens is that if you're doing that on quite a regular basis, you're always building up awareness and you're sort of nudging a potential customer to go, oh, I saw something about a post from Frankston Art Centre just the other day. That might be useful for me. So it's that kind of like art reminding people all the time as part of that, building that awareness in the traditional sales funnel. What we're then hoping is that stimulates some interest and they think, I might reach out and ask if you might be able to give me a quote or tell me a little bit about your organisation. And at that point, me as a business event manager, I'm doing a bit of comparative shopping. I'm going, which colour pair of shoes, which colour handbag do I like here? Which colour venue do I like here? What sort of winery experience do I think is going to be suitable for my client or for me here? And the goal then, obviously, is for us to engage that interest. So we'll talk about how we do that in a second. At the decision stage, people are making a really clear decision. So you need to make your offer stand out. Talk about how we do that in a second. Traditionally, when we're buying things online or when we're buying things, offers might be very price driven. I don't think in reality price is always important in the business event sector, but we are less price driven than we are quality driven. We're very quality driven. Our client doesn't necessarily want the cheapest. They want the thing that is the most appropriate and the best fit for, that can provide the service or the product in the best way to meet their own needs. So price is always important, of course, but it's not always the big decision maker. So please don't feel you've got to cut your throat and give us a big fat deal. That's not what we're necessarily looking for. And of course, that call to action is about that asking for the sale. How often does the sale fail to eventuate? It might be nothing whatsoever to do with what you've offered. It may just be that the client's got a preference for a different product, or the existing relationship that the business event buyer has with an existing project overcomes your fabulous idea, your fabulous product in the first instance. So a little bit of an example here.
Just a question on that, Jo.
Sure.
What's in terms of the sales decision? Obviously, you fill the funnel with a lot of inquiries. Is there an industry percentage around how many of those you should be confirming?
Not really. I mean, it depends on your business to a certain extent. I mean, you may well have internally, a lot of organizations have a very specific target for that, which is a bit of a tricky challenge, really, because sometimes the target can feel a little bit sort of random and not necessarily based on the level of amount of business that's coming in. If you are very new to providing in the business event space, then I don't think you would necessarily be able to expect to convert a very high percentage of business event inquiries in the first instance. We're a slow dance rather than a fast jig in terms of the relationship. So it takes a while sometimes to build the relationship so that the confidence is there to place the business with you. And we'll talk about how you can get out there and help to encourage that relationship to build in a moment. So it's difficult to put a percentage on it, which is a very long answer to a relatively short question. I think one of the things that's most important to do is, if you don't get the business, is to have the confidence to ask why not. What was the thing that stopped them? And regularly, it's not price. Regularly, it's about, look, the client really likes X, and I was unable to persuade them to, be a bit adventurous this time. Or I really like X, and I'm really confident about them, in which case that's a little bit easier for me to overcome. If the client really likes X this time, how I would overcome that was by getting the client to come and have a look at our venue if they hadn't already. Get them over for coffee, meet the team, which we'll talk about a bit more in a minute, but those things are all good about so a no isn't a no, go away, I'm never going to come near you again. It's a not this time. So that can be quite demoralizing when you put a lot of effort into it, but I encourage you to remain strong and not get demoralized, and see it as an opportunity to continue the conversation. Ideally, as part of the decision process, the client is going to have questions. That is the time to get them to come to you. Lots of you will have fantastic venues, products that sell themselves when somebody walks through the door, or tastes the wine, or comes on the tour, or whatever it is, whatever product you have. And getting them to come and have a little bit of a look and a little bit of a time in your space is often the thing that actually converts that sale. Because they feel confident about you, they've met you face to face. So another way is, if you aren't very nearby, is to do things on Zoom. So a classic example of this, I went to a meeting the other day at a very large venue here where I am, and one of the sales team was walking around with their phone showing the venue, because it was very easy for the person to get there, but they could see it. And I thought that was a really great idea, because it shows a real desire for the person to see what we've got, to experience what we've got. And actually, we like that. One of the things that all clients respond well to is a belief that you actually care to have our business. So when clients can't come to you, show and tell. If you can't physically meet them, jump on a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting. It's a whole different beast when you're having a conversation with somebody you can see than on the phone or just in that email. It's not, we've all experienced that, I'm sure. And we've all probably got a lot more confident about our ability to manage in this lovely Zoom environment or Teams environment than ever we were before. Let's have a quick few ideas about the sales funnel from a business events perspective, because I'm going to put, you saw on that earlier slide, there's a bit more in there. It's not quite so short, sharp and shiny as if we were selling handbags or slightly more or items of less money value, but also perhaps less business importance value. So I like to have a bit of a longer business event sales funnel. So the first thing is about that awareness. So one of the tips or techniques at the beginning of your sales journey is getting people to know about you. Now, traditionally, we might have sent out a brochure, or we might have sent an EDM, an electronic direct mail with, here's a lovely picture of our new menu for summer. Those are great things to do, and I would encourage you to not stop doing them. But another way of building awareness is to get people to feel that they know you better. And social media is fantastic for that. So connecting with people on LinkedIn in your own area and within the events industry are really good ways of raising the profile of your organization or your product or you in this space. So there's a lot of people in the room today. Connect with each other. If you haven't met each other yet, there's a perfect opportunity to do so. Because quite often what might happen is that somebody might come to me and I cannot manage the business for whatever reason, or it's not something that I normally do. So I don't normally say, no, thank you, I can't help you. I say, I'm unable to help you this time, but I know somebody who can. And we always pass business to each other. So we are each other's sales advocates as well at that point. So general awareness is really important, but it's about awareness within your industry sector as well. So I really encourage you to get to know each other to do that.
That's probably a good segue as well, Jo, into our next webinar, which is around that cooperation space and collaboration, which we're doing the next webinar on.
Which is going to be about working collaboratively, but also building connections with each other in all sorts of different ways, And
I'll just add here that the main place that we play from a Business Events Victoria perspective is in this awareness space. Yeah. This is our key role that we play in terms of working with clients through our LinkedIn channels, through our Instagram posts, through the trade shows we attend, through our sales meetings, through our planners guides. All the stuff that we kind of do sits in this awareness space to allow then to fill the funnel, hopefully that then fills down into interest for all of our members and things down the chain.
And the other thing that sort of often builds that awareness funnel is from a venue perspective, for example, you're always cooking. Your chefs are coming up with fantastic new food all the time. So putting pictures of look what the chef created today type stuff. Having that opportunity to perhaps do something on at least a weekly basis and seeing it as part of a sales activity often makes it go into the diary basically as well, which is quite useful. Anything about any images that you've got, we talked about this a little bit in the marketing one as well. If you had a great event in your venue, or you've had a great business event come to your winery, or you did a tour with people who are there for a conference, take the images, ask their permission to use them, because it's a bit like, here's one we did earlier, here's what we're capable of. And all of those help build that confidence in the business event buyer that you know your stuff and you can deliver on your promise, which is really important. So the business events client is very discerning. We were going to look for that. We don't want to be your first client, really. We want to know that you've got some skills in this space. So stimulating our interest by answering our questions through things like frequently asked questions on the website, guest reviews, testimonials, all really good, product pictures, information, all really useful, both on websites, but also, in any of those social media areas that you are actively engaged in. We also do a big evaluation. So we talked about this slightly earlier. You might not see us until we've actually done that point. You might not even hear from us until we've done some of that evaluation. So we're going to compare and contrast what you've got with what somebody else has got. Sometimes we are comparing that with things we already know and use, but my client doesn't want to go to the same place every time. They don't want to use the same suppliers every time. Nobody's clients do. So we are always looking for new stuff. We're looking to reinvent the wheel all the time. So that's where you can come in. So, for example, you might like to follow PCOs or event managers on LinkedIn and on the social media platforms. And so when you see them do something interesting, you might say, I saw you just did an event, you know, in X. Looked fantastic. We've got, you know, you might be interested in seeing what we have for your next event. So you kind of not just saying, please buy, you're responding to something that they've done and continuing the conversation. So it doesn't sound like a hard sell, that, does it? It sounds like a chat. It sounds like talking to a colleague, and that's what you're doing. So the point of inquiry is often at that point. But if you've got things like product comparison tables, you know, so if you've got a lot of, if you're a venue, you've got rooms, if you've got those lovely tables that tell us how many people we can cram in each room, seriously helpful. If you've got great pictures of each room, not empty, looking pretty, but looking busy. Here's the room as it really looks when it's got a wedding in it. Here's my winery here's how it really looks when people are having a barrel tasting, for example. Those are really useful because they prove capability to us in a way that just telling us you could give it a go do not. Just keeping a weather eye on next one. All right, engagement. This is time for the personal connection. Get on the phone. I know I've said that before. This little device is your friend. Now, depending on how long you've been in events, you might be really, really confident about using the telephone. My experience is that confidence for a lot of people has waned over the last few years. And so it might be something that if you've got particularly less experienced team members, they're really wary of the phone. They're a bit nervous of it. And you might find that demonstrated when they even send you an email to ask you a question and you're actually only next door. So getting people more confident about picking up the phone is really important, because we want to get to know you. And if you're in Victoria and I'm in South Australia, which is the actual truth, I can't get to know you so easily because I can't just pop round for a cup of coffee. But if we speak on the phone, I can get to know you a bit better. Proving their interest is valid by proving that you are a professional person that can deliver on the service. Really important to us. Getting them to visit is really important if you can. So always encourage them to come for a site visit. Always encourage them to come and see what their client will experience. But also making sure that you've tailored any response that you're making or any proposal you're putting together for their specific needs. So you demonstrate to them that you've understood what they want. So I quite like in my proposals to summarize my understanding of what they want. So it doesn't look so much like it's just a standard, here's one I did earlier that I've just changed the name and chucked it out to them. So Nicole's got a question. Is approval from a business event organizer or wedding organizer host and allowed to use? Yes. So generally speaking, if it's normally they would ask their clients the same thing. So they would normally be okay. If you've got mass pictures of lots of people, you're normally okay, Nicole. If it's just you and I, then you might need to ask our permission. It's normally the volume of people is usually all right. But I always ask. I normally say at the beginning, we're going to take some pictures. We'd love to use pictures of your event on our website. Most people are delighted. They say, oh, how lovely. So I don't think anybody's ever said no to me, but that's a great question. Thank you very much for asking it. The other thing that then comes is the decision. So the decision is obviously we want a yes, but as I said earlier, if we get a no, we want to know why we got a no. And a no is not going to be, I'm never coming near you again. A no is going to be, it just wasn't right for us this time. So that is your excuse, yes or no, to not never leave them alone, but they are now your friends. Yeah, so don't lose sight of them. So you want to then, as part of your sales process, my strong recommendation is that you diarise to just give them a bit of a nudge. in a couple, maybe every 3 months. Hi, haven't heard from you in a while. Hope you're doing well. What sort of things are you doing at the moment? Have you seen our new summer menus, whatever it might be? It's quite useful for all of us, if we're making contact, to have a reason beyond I just thought I'd ring up and say hello. Everybody's kind of busy, so it's quite nice if you've got if you can come up with your own reason. And most of us, when we're in our organizations, I've got something new that we've just launched, or we've got a new menu, a new product, and we've just redecorated, or perhaps we're just about to launch our new brochure, whatever it might be. Another great way about keeping engaged, if they say yes or no, is to leave a couple of ask them to come visit. So one of the things that venues often do this really brilliantly is that every so months they get people to come around and have another look, and the rooms might be identical, but they normally have some sort of excuse about come and see our new morning tea, come and have morning tea with us and sample our new morning tea menu, for example. It doesn't matter if it's not really a new morning tea menu. Most of us will come out for a lovely cup of coffee and a nice cake. Business event people, they're used to getting out there and trying to experience the product before their client does. So they're very responsive to those overtures that you might make. So stay engaged, whether they say yes or whether they say no. Once they say yes, it's also important to stay engaged. So some organizations have quite sort of strict demarcation lines, between the sales team and kind of the operational team. If it's a new client, I strongly recommend that you fluff those lines a bit and make sure if you're the person that's converted the sale or you've been their main contact, that you don't lose them. I'm sure your operational colleagues are fantastic, but just make sure they still have some connection with you as well, because that you're the one they've got the relationship with and you want to maintain it. Don't kiss and run, basically, is what I say. So what we're looking for and what you will get is loyalty. So loyalty is unusual in sales because most of us are pretty fickle. We don't all go to the same shoe shop, same wine bar, same restaurant, do we? But in business events, we quite often are quite loyal. So that's quite tricky sometimes to convert somebody to you. But once you've got them, if you do a good job, you'll keep them, because they'll know that they can trust you. So a good way of building up that loyalty is the post-purchase follow-up. So that's really important, and I like a phone call. I'll happily fill in a survey, no worries at all, but I really quite appreciate it if you pick up the phone and go, hi, I'm so glad you had your event with us last week. How did it go? Is there anything we could do differently? Anything you'd like for next time? It makes me feel the love. It makes me feel like you really want my business. And what does it take? It's 10 minutes of your time. So really important. I know lots of us will be sending out, did you have a lovely time surveys? And we do that a lot at Mia. And obviously it's not necessarily possible for me to ring all 24 of you and go, hi, how did you go? But if so you can't always do it with a big group of people, but you can do it with whoever the buyer was. Another way to engage their loyalty is to make sure that if you are having a new product, that you give them the option for it first. You get them to see it first. That you may have loyalty offers. It might be that that you've got a new day delegate rate, for example, but you're happy to give them the old one because you believe that their business is worthwhile to you. Having said that, we are very aware in the business event sector that prices have to rise. Our prices have risen. We know that. We don't expect you to ruin your business to offer us a good price. We need your business to survive. We need your business to do well. So we do appreciate that we have to pay for that. So please don't worry about that. Sometimes people feel that the only way to get business is to discount. I would strongly advise against it if you can help it, because what happens when you discount is it artificially lowers the cost of your product, and our expectations sit at that level too. So a better way than discounting is to add value. So is to offer something in addition. Is to maybe upgrade the the drinks package, for example, if you can, rather than drop the price down, as an example. Go for the chocolate cake rather than the plain biscuits type of thing. Okay, how we're doing. Jumping slightly, I'm always worried about the time with these. So the other thing quickly to think about is that lots of other people are going to impact on sales, and they might not be your sales team. So whoever answers the phone, whoever's wandering around your space or in your organization wearing a corporate or a branded uniform, who's working behind the scenes but is seen by the customer, who processes the invoices, who rings up and reminds them when they haven't paid the invoice, how they do that, who's going to events like the Business Events Victoria events or TAMIA events, who's representing your organization, which people in your area know you, work with you, and do business with you. So all of those people are going to influence how people feel about your business. So having a bit of a sort of a team ethos about what that looks like is important. So as an example, if you're in we use a venue a little bit, but because I think it resonates quite well with people. But if you're in a venue and people are moving stuff around, you sort of want them to be doing that relatively quietly, suitably dressed, and not having long personal conversations on their phone or yelling around to each other or having too much of a laugh. You want everybody who is seen by a customer to look professional. So when you go to a 5-star hotel, the housekeeping team say good morning. It's all about kind of that staying a little bit on brand. So remembering that sometimes sales are influenced by people other than those of us who are in a face-to-face environment with the customer.
I think the other one to add there, Joe, as well, is the AV and tech support, who obviously sit as part of this whole decision-making process.
Yes.
And having them, especially if they're an external AV provider, making sure that they're meeting on the promises that you're making for your business.
Yeah, so having a great relationship with your AV support, whoever they are, is important. And because they're going to make it. They will make and break it for you if you don't. The problem is sometimes people do use external suppliers and they're not really very sure about what that person does. And they just go, oh, Bill's our AV, and then they just pass you over to that person. So I quite like to see that the AV together. So if you're having them round to visit, maybe get the AV person in too, if you need audio visual, and then you can have that conversation together, because then you get a real good idea about what that person is saying and how they're saying it and how professional they come across. A lot of us would have in-house AV, i.e. it's our own team, but if we don't, we might have a formal contract with somebody, and setting the kind of customer service levels of that formal contract are really important, because poor AV is a real no-no for a business event, because we need to be able to see and hear what's going on. So great, yeah, good point. Thank you, Chris. The other thing is to think about it. I'm whizzing a little bit because I'm conscious of the time, but is to think about this as being much more of a consultative approach to sales. So it's not a hard sale. It's all about influencing, helping people find a great solution. So it's how your product, your service, your venue, whatever it is that you have, how it can be a good solution to the business event client's needs, how it can add value to the experience by giving them something new, how it can add value to their normal experience by being something different. So being prepared to ask questions, find out what do you want to achieve at the event, what worked well for you last time is always a good question. Is there anything that didn't work well for you last time? Is also a good question, so you don't replicate what didn't go well. Being credible. So to be credible, you need to know what you're talking about. You need good product knowledge. How many people can fit in this room? Is it important to know that information? Often, what sort of price is AV? Oh, I'll have to ask Bob. Doesn't really instill a lot of confidence. Having an idea about what the basic AV package normally comes in at is a useful piece of information to know. Being honest about what you can and maybe what you can't do, having that personal integrity is really important, because what we really want is to feel confident that we're on the same team. So sales can be scary. So, you know, it's really about thinking about what organizations or people might be good to target. Who are the people in your area that might be useful for you to reach out to in the first instance, perhaps, or to think about the sort of things that they might like when you're putting your social media posts together. Making sure that all of the information that you provide is not just generic, here's our brochure, but is tailored to what they've told you they're after, what's told, so it fits their event. No point showing them the room that fits 1,000 people if they've got 100. I mean, you can, if you say, look, let me show you the other rooms in case you get a larger event in the future, but I wouldn't lead off with that one because they're going to rattle around in it. It's not going to be suitable and you're not going to want to sell them that space anyway. And be a little bit prepared to negotiate on inclusions. I would recommend, as I said earlier, negotiate on what's included rather than what the price is, because you don't want to artificially lower the price and make it difficult for you to deliver on the service that you want to deliver. The big thing is then asking for the business. Lots of people find that tricky. Ooh, so I've showed you around, I've given you a lovely proposal, and then I sit there and go, I don't know what to say now. I don't know how to say, come on then, how about it? Which is kind of what you want to say, but we'll think of some different language for that. So I'll give you some ideas in a minute about a little bit of a pitch and a bit of wording that you might use to get more confident with that. So when we often talk, when you hear about a sales pitch, traditionally it's kind of got some sort of an attention grabber. You know, starts with a problem you can solve. You know, our wine is, enjoy our fabulous wine overlooking our beautiful vineyard. Taking the listener on some sort of a journey, so talking about the benefits and some sort of compelling call to action, which regularly when we see sales pitches, it's often about buy now because it's on special offer till Thursday, or here's a loyalty code or whatever it might be. But business events customers, we want to do business with people that we can trust. So we're less excited about the more traditional sales pitch. We're more turned on by what I call the slow pitch. So because it's about creating confidence and often creating a bit of a relationship before that sales occurs, I think it's always a great idea for you to be able to have a very short intro to you and the business that you can use pretty much everywhere. So if you've got some wording in your own head, you can use it when you go to an industry event. You can use it if we were to go around the room here today and ask you all to introduce yourself. You can use it socially. When you pick the kids up from school and somebody says, actually, I work for a large organization, we're going to have an event. Aha, voila. When you're in your local community, you can use it. So you're aware of, you know, what you can say in a couple of short sentences. So I've got a bit of an example there. So for example, I'm saying a lot to people at the moment, if they don't know me, that I work at Mia, and I just tell them that actually we've just launched a new webinar series. The last one was really popular, and I don't know if you've seen it, but there were some great topics. Let me send you the link because I think you'd be interested in this. Or better still, maybe we'll catch up for a coffee and I'll tell you all about it. So those type of things, easy to say. I've got a particular product that I'm talking about. So for example, if you're a venue, you might say, I don't know if you know, I actually work for Venue X, and you know, we've got some really great space and we've just got a new fantastic menu, or we've just had a refurbishment, or we recently had a great conference at our event. Love to show you the space they use. I think it would be good for you too. So it's just about starting that conversation as an example. So having that in your head, if it's doesn't come naturally to you, don't panic. So have it in your head, but maybe we want to get it in other people's heads. So remember we spoke earlier about the fact that all of our team probably have a bit of a sales role, even if they don't acknowledge it, want it, or know it. That the person that answers the phone, or the person on the reception, or the person that you know is out there because they know everybody, try to get, maybe they could also come up with a little bit of that slow pitch, things that they know what's happening at the moment in your business, They know maybe where your focus is on what you want to try and sell, and they got some wording that sounds like them, that makes it's natural to them, and they feel confident about using. A few of the other things that sometimes come up is, what do I do if they say no? So a lot of the handling objections it can be quite tricky for people. People generally are not simply going to say, no, I don't like it, go away. They're definitely going to say things like, oh, it's a bit more than I wanted to pay. So then that's fine. It's confirming the value. If I would normally ask, I always ask what the budget is, to be honest. One of my first questions is, what is your budget? Because there's no point selling you French champagne if actually you're in the money for sort of, sarsaparilla at best. So getting an idea of budget is important. I try to also think about the value that we can add. All right, yeah, I appreciate it's maybe a little bit more expensive than you had anticipated. What can we add to, what other value can we maybe think about that will make that worthwhile for you, as an example? Not ready to decide? Great. That's my give out if I'm not certain. Excellent. Okay, I appreciate it's a lot to take on. Can I give you a call next Friday and see how you are? And then make sure you do follow up. I'm not really sure if it suits our needs. Okay, ask what that is. Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about what areas are less suitable for you, do you think? Can you offer an alternative? Because if you know why it doesn't suit, it may be that actually you can overcome that objection really quickly, because you know you've got something else that would suit them. But if you just go, oh, okay, then you don't know what's stopping them from purchasing. We normally use Jo for this. Oh, I know, I understand that. I appreciate you've got a really great relationship with her and you've used her for a long time. I know you know so-and-so, and she used us last time and really liked it. Maybe we could ask her to let you know how well we did. We really think that you'd enjoy working with our team. Let me get you to come in and meet them. All of those things. So an objection isn't a flat no. It's I need more reassurance. From a business event perspective, if we really can't use you, we'll tell you exactly why not. I'm afraid I cannot place the business with you this time because my client is really keen to go to such and such. That's thank you for telling me, and I really hope we can use you again. And then that's the follow-up we talked about earlier. The other thing that people really struggle with is asking for the business, which we often call closing the sale. And it's just saying, please book. So I like to give people some tips on where to use that. Words that you can use. So sometimes we just need the language. So I quite like, as a sort of a closing, well, let's go over what you've told me so far. I paraphrase what they've said. Does that sound right? All right, have I answered all your questions? Is there any other information I can give you right now? All right, that looks like it's going to work really well for you. Shall I hold the space? Shall I make a booking? Are you ready to confirm now? Or I'm more direct, so I can confirm that for you right now. I can organise the contract for you right now if you like. Would you like to move? How would you like to move ahead? So rather than would you, how would you? Are you ready to book? Yes, excellent. No, not yet. Okay, well, why don't I call you Friday and we can see if you're ready at that point, see how that's going. So it's all about just language, really, being confident about the language. And some people may be really super confident about that already. Okay, so I'm conscious of the time slightly, and I've rattled through the last bit a little bit, but just some final thoughts from me before we ask for if there's any particular questions. A helpful attitude and professionalism sells more long-term than discounts, offers, and giveaways. Feeling that we're part of a team working collaboratively for the end client's benefit is going to get my business to you again and again and again. So to do that, I need to feel confident. So getting me or any other business event client to see your product through site inspections if you can, for meals if you're able to participate, showcases, get lots of people to come at once, videos, all of that helps sell the fabulous products that you've got. Feeling confident is about practice. So practicing the language and having a script really helps me and would hopefully help you to practice asking for the business Practice at the office, different ways of asking people to put their lovely money where you in your hot little hands. And building your event networks and your own networks of people who are working in the event space helps generate sales recommendations, which is really a sales lead, because we help each other out and we have confidence in each other's products and each other, and so we become each other's sales leads. So to get those sales leads from your networks, you need to build those networks. So we'll talk a lot about that next time. But quickly, I'd say go to everything you can, connect with everybody you can, and keep those connections going. Really important as well. All right, so final thoughts and questions. Thank you very much for listening to me talk about sales. I appreciate it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I really appreciate you spending the time with us today. Very happy to take comments or questions, individual or group, if anybody has them. And while you're thinking about that, I might get Chris just to tell you what's coming up next.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Another great informative session. I hope you've all taken a lot out of that process, and hopefully it demystifies some of the sales challenges that are out there. Just a little bit to Joe's point, yeah, we've got a couple of additional webinars that are coming up as our series continues over the next couple of weeks now. So on the 23rd, we're talking about collaboration and cooperation to win. So looking at what you can do to actually, I suppose a lot of that comes down to this valuating. What else can you do in your region? How can you work together as a region or other venues within your destination to actually ensure that you get those wins into your business or into your destination? And then in a couple of weeks' time on the 6th of September, can't believe it's September, the incentive segment. So quite a niche area for the business events marketplace, I suppose, but a really worthwhile one to really engage with and look at how you can actually engage in this sector. The incentive market is really, or the segment is really looking for experiences and other opportunities that they do in region, but obviously that brings a lot of opportunity for a venue as well in terms of what you can do. So it's just really looking at how you can change your messaging a little bit to suit that particular segment of the business event sector. But does anyone, I know we're 10 minutes over at the end of play. A lot of great information in there. Does anyone have any quick questions or anything that they're wanting to get off their chest while we've got Joe online this afternoon?
So if you haven't got anything straight away and something pops into your head the minute we finish, please do feel free to send me an email. Happy to hear from anybody at any time. The easiest one, I'll just pop it into the chat box for you, is education@mea.org.au. That will always get me. And I will also share with you all a copy of the slides. I'll send those out a little bit later on today, if I can, or send them to Chris to circulate to everybody, and encourage you all to participate in the next webinar. And do feel free also to join any of the MEA events that we've got going. We'd love to see you there. So thanks again, everybody, and hope to see you all in a couple of weeks. Checklist, says Lucy. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I can certainly send you a checklist. If you'd like to send me a quick email, Lucy, then as a reminder, I'll send you a couple of copies and you can use them, fiddle with them, do what you like with them. They're all good. Absolutely. No point reinventing the wheel if somebody's got a good idea you can use. Yeah.
And just from us to you, Joe, thank you very much once again for today's session. I hope everyone from around the state and beyond found it worthwhile. And yeah, as Joe said, hopefully we'll see you at our next session in a couple of weeks' time. And if you have any questions that come out of this, please reach out to me or my team or Joe. We're really happy to assist and see where we can help out. But thank you, everyone, for today.
Great stuff. Thanks, everybody. Lovely to see you all. Bye-bye.